Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 8. This is about engagement, how important of a topic it is, especially now in times of uncertainty.
Right.
And so here we are. We've actually taken quite a bit of time to focus on what engagement is, because we needed to be clear for us and for you as the listeners as to what we mean by engagement. And so here we have it. There is a definition that we've come up with, and we wanted to share, but we want to do a little bit more than that. We want to explain what it is that we're going to share with you in terms of the tools and resources and what to expect in the next series. So here it is. Here's a definition: talking and listening to each other to build better relationships and work together towards shared goals. And we've talked quite a bit about what this meant. It was important for us to use clear language and really speak to how important was a two-way communication and more about the outcome of engagement. So, Roz, what do you think about engagement?
When I think about engagement, I think about connecting with people. I think about connecting with who they are, what the confusion is, what they want, and I listen. And then I ask questions, and then I give feedback. Now, all of the tools that we're going to talk about, or Kevin and Michael will, because they're consultants that deliver the process or the program for this, we'll get into the detail of it. But I think in the launch, we need to be clear that we may be talking to a lot of people who have no idea what engagement means, are not engaged, are in fact confused, don't feel supported, and they're quitting in numbers.
Yes, this is not a university course on employee engagement, that's for sure. It's really, it's really talking at a very purpose level, what engagement actually means and really key broad strokes on engagement.
So in my view, it's talking to their capacity for emotional intelligence, not how much they know about this or that or the other system. It's humanistic approach.
Yeah. So Leslie, what do you think we can achieve through this podcast on engagement?
I think we could do 4 things in this podcast. I think that we give everybody a sense of what does engagement mean? Like, what are we talking when we talk about? You could go to the internet and you could find probably 89 different definitions of engagement, and most of them is your turnover too high? That's kind of what everybody says. But that's a measurement. That's not a what it is. So let's talk about what we think engagement is. The next thing I think we can cover is the current state. And we keep coming back to 2 themes under current state: uncertainty and what I'm going to call fragmentation. So basically, people, not only is it uncertain, we're not even sure that everybody's on the same wavelengths or on the same path.
Right.
There's a variety of ways people are working in the office. People are working from home.
Right.
Does it matter? All that sort of stuff.
Right.
Why does, the number 3 is, why does engagement matter? And I think we can rely on a few stats from Gallup to demonstrate why this matters. Okay. And the good news is I also found this chart from Gallup. And the good news is that overall, globally, engagement is at about 23%. However they measure it. I'm not going to talk about how they measure it, but they measure it at 23%.
Right.
Among companies that incorporate best practices, again, I'm not going to talk about best practices because some of that stuff will be in future episodes. Engagement is at 72%, which means we're not victims. of engagement. We can actually actively do things to
Right.
move that number from 23 to 72.
Right.
And then fourthly, we can say, how can we assessment? And then we can briefly touch on things like, well, if our rate of turnover starts to climb, we know it could be a problem with engagement. If absenteeism starts to go up over time, I mean, I'm not talking about February when the flu hits, but over time, if absenteeism continues to climb, there could be an issue with engagement. So we can talk about those 4 things.
But we live in a time of uncertainty, and so we need to really be clear as we move forward. And what does that actually mean? So I'm going to ask you, Roz, what is it that we're dealing with right now? Because it's not the same. So what is the current state? What are you experiencing?
Excellent question, Sylvia. Thank you. I know that someone is engaged when 3 things happen. Number 1, they're accountable. I can count on them. Number 2, they have the ability to respond to whatever's going on in the day, week, month, year. Number 3, I can give them the authority or the permission to make choices or decisions without me or without approval. Okay? And when that's happening and everything goes bad, because it always does, it's all hands to the pump. Everybody shows up and they are able to articulate the current state, what we thought and what it turned out to be, and then yuck. And they can also take that conversation to a desired future state. Well, what do we want? We didn't know this and that was going to happen. Oh, well, that ship passed. What do we want to do now? And that's important to go to the second point about engagement, which is that there is, in fact, a huge amount of uncertainty in existing in all workplaces now, whether it's economic or whether it's people not being paid enough or whatever. Things are not stable right now. And so people go for let's say, I think you used the word pragmatism, and I agree with that.
Fragmentation.
But what I think they do is they go for what's reasonable. Well, they get in the least amount of trouble instead of they should be accountable for.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where they just don't take any action. So
they take action, they don't take risk.
Right. But the action might be, well, I don't know, or I'm too busy, or I can do it in a month, or I can't do it now, or you didn't tell me, as opposed to, oh my God, this is important. Here's my challenges, and they agree on it. Okay.
I love what you said, Roz, because you couldn't have explained better what engagement is. You couldn't have. One of the research that I actually read and I was going to talk about today is from Harvard, and it really talks about that there is a discrepancy actually between what leaders think their employees need versus what they actually need.
Yeah, most leaders have no idea what their employees need. Do you know why?
The closer you get, right? It really, engagement is about closing that gap, right?
Well, but I think it comes before that, okay? Closing the gap is work. Wanting to is intelligence. And most leaders don't want to. They want you to get it done. They cross their fingers and hope that you're not going to get them in jail. But they don't want to know the details. And they don't want to be involved.
So, Leslie, We know engagement is important, and we've talked about different aspects in the current state, the uncertainty. Can you tell us more about why does it matter?
Thank you, Sylvia. It does matter, and it matters not only to the individual, but it also matters to the overall functioning of an organization. I mean, just a few of the benefits of a high level of engagement are customer loyalty, and we know that customer loyalty helps to improve productivity. It helps to improve profitability for a company that is in the for-profit business. It helps to minimize staff turnover. It helps to reduce absenteeism among staff. So these are all important measures that companies use to direct their own organizational effectiveness. The good news is, as individuals, as leaders, we can actually make a difference. Gallup has some data, and overall, global engagement in the workplace is at 23%, which doesn't sound like a very high number, and it isn't. It's less than a quarter of the total workforce. But among companies who have best practice, who follow best practices, that engagement level is at 72%. So without going into what all of those best practices is, we were going to be covering some of those things in the next few episodes. But just take comfort in knowing that you can make a difference in terms of how you engage with people. So for example, how do you measure this stuff? Well, one of the measures that Gallup uses is they ask the question, do your opinions seem to count? Do they seem to matter when you're at work? And only 25% of staff say that their opinions matter. Could explain why a lot of the cameras get turned off at those digital meetings, right? What I have to say doesn't matter. I'm not here. But if you can bring that ratio up to 2 and 4, like half, if half of your employees believe that their opinions and their thoughts and opinions matter, the organization notice a 22% reduction in turnover, 33% reduction in safety incidences, and a 10% increase in productivity. So it does matter how people see their role in the organization. I'll do another one really quickly here because I know numbers are hard to follow when you're listening, but I know what's expected of me at work. The numbers say that half of employees really feel that they know what's expected of them at work. If you can increase that to 80%, you have a 22% reduction in turnover, a 29% reduction in safety incidences, and another 10% increase in productivity. So the good news is what we do as leaders matters, and we can have a positive impact on these kinds of performances. How do we assess it? We assess it basically using some of the parameters I've just talked about. Is your staff turnover increasing over time? That could be an engagement issue. Is your absenteeism going up over time? That could be an engagement issue. And we're going to be talking about these kinds of things over the next few months.
Thank you, Leslie, and that's exactly what we're going to go through for the next steps. We're going to focus a little bit more on how do we deal with uncertainty, for example. How do we communicate as leaders, and as well as to how we engage with the people that work for us. We're very excited to introduce the series, and we look forward to continuing this conversation. It's a very serious one. As you've heard us talk about here amongst ourselves, what do we mean by that? And we're going to be releasing our next episodes, from January to March. And yes. Thank you for listening to episode 8 of the Leadership Trademark Podcast. We're very excited to launch the next series, and find us where you get your podcast.